Welcome back to Indian in the Cupboard, and we are halfway through chapter 9. We left off where he thought he had separated Little Bear and the cowboy far enough apart, but the horses had smelled each other and they were whinnying at each other. They were not so far apart, and the cowboys wasn't tied up. Omri could hear his little hooves clattering on the bare boards of the crate, and then the whinnies began again, high, shrill, almost questioning. Omri thought of putting on his light, but he was awfully tired. Besides, what could he do? They couldn't possibly reach each other through the planks of the crate wall. Let them whinny their heads off. They'd soon get fed up. Omri rolled over and fell asleep. He was awakened just after dawn by shots. He was out of bed in about 1/5 of a second. One glance into the crate showed him all too clearly that the cowboy and his horse had escaped. The second glance showed how. A knot in the wood had been pushed out, or perhaps kicked out by the horse, leaving an oval-shaped hole like an arched doorway just big enough to let horse and rider through. Omri looked around wildly. At first he could see nothing. He dropped to his knees beside the seed box and peered into the longhouse. Little Bear was not there, nor was his horse. Suddenly some tiny thing whizzed past Omri's ear and struck the crate beside him with a ping. Twisting his head, Omri saw it, a feathered arrow the size of a pin, still quivering from its flight. Was Little Bear shooting at him? "Little Bear, where are you?" No answer, but suddenly a movement like that of a mouse caught the corner of his eye. It was the cowboy. Dragging his horse behind him, he was running half bent over from behind one chair leg to another. He had his revolver in his hand, his hat on his head. Another arrow flew, missing the crate this time and burying itself in the carpet just ahead of the running cowboy, who stopped dead, jumped backwards till his horse hit him, and then fired another 2 shots from behind the horse's shoulder. Omri, following his aim, spotted Little Bear at once. He and his horse were behind a small heap of cloth, which was like a snow-covered hill to them, but was actually Omri's vest, dropped carelessly on the floor the night before. Little Bear, safe in the shelter of this cotton mountain, was just preparing to shoot another arrow at the cowboy, one that could hardly fail to hit its mark. The poor fellow was now scrambling desperately onto his horse to try to ride away, and was in full-blown sight of the Indian as he drew back his bowstring. "Little Bear, stop!" Omri's frenzied voice rang out. Little Bear did not stop, but his surprise spoiled his aim, and the arrow sped over the cowboy, doing no worse than sweeping away his big hat and pinning it to the baseboard behind the chair. This infuriated the little man, who, forgetting his fear, stood up in his stirrups and shouted, "Tarnation take ya, you red varmint! Wait till I catch ya! I'll have your stinking red hide for a sleeping bag!" With that, he rode straight toward the Vest Hill at full gallop, shouting out strange cowboy war cries and waving his gun, which, by Omri's count, still had 2 bullets in it. Little Bear had not expected this, but he was only outfaced for a moment. Then he coolly drew another arrow from his quiver and fitted it into his bow. "Little Bear, if you shoot, I'll pick you up and squeeze you," Omri cried. Little Bear kept his arrow pointing toward the oncoming horseman. "What you do if he shoot?" he asked. "He won't shoot. Look at him." Sure enough, the carpet was too soft for much galloping, and even as Omri spoke, the cowboy's horse stumbled and fell, pitching its rider over its head. Little Bear lowered his bow and laughed. Then, to Omri's horror, he laid down the bow among the folds of the vest, reached for his knife, and began to advance on the cowboy. "Little Bear, you are not to touch him, do you hear?" Little Bear stopped. "He tried to shoot, Little Bear. White enemy. Try to take Indian's land. Why not kill? Better dead. I act quick, he not feel, you see." And he began to move forward again. When he was nearly up to the cowboy, Omri swooped on him. He didn't squeeze him, of course, but he did lift him high and fast enough to give him a fright. "Listen to me now. That cowboy isn't after your land. He's got nothing to do with you. He's Patrick's cowboy like you're my Indian. I'm taking him to school with me today, so you won't be bothered by him anymore. Now you take your horse and get back to your longhouse and leave him to me." Little Bear, sitting cross-legged in the palm of his hand, gave him a sly look. "You take him to school? Place you learn about ancestors?" "That's what I said." He folded his arms, offended. "Why you not take Little Bear?" Omri was startled into silence. If white fool with coward's face good enough, Indian chief good enough, you wouldn't enjoy it. If he enjoy it, I enjoy. I'm not taking you. It's too risky. Risky? Firewater? Not whiskey. Risky. It's dangerous. He shouldn't have said that. Little Bear's eyes lit up. Like danger. Too quiet here. No hunting. Him only enemy, he said scornfully, peering over the edge of Omri's hand at the cowboy, who, despite the softness of his landing place, was only just scrambling to his feet. Look, he no use for fight. Little Bear soon kill, take scalp, finish. Very good scalp, he added generously. Fine color, look good on belt. Omri looked across at the cowboy. He was leaning his ginger head against his saddle. It looked as if he might be crying again. Omri felt very sorry for him. You're not going to hurt him, because I won't let you, he said to the Indian. If he's such a coward, it wouldn't do your honor any good anyway. Little Bear's face fell, then grew mulish. No tell from scalp on belt if he belonged to coward or brave man, he said slyly. I apologize. Let me shut this off. Okay. No tell from scalp on belt if belonged to coward or brave man, he said slyly. Let me kill and I do dance around the campfire, he coaxed. No, Omri began. Then he changed his tactics. All right, you kill him, but then I won't bring you a wife. The Indian looked at him a long time. Then he slowly put his knife away. No touch, give word. Now you give word. Take Little Bear to school. Take to plastic. Let Little Bear choose his own woman. Omri considered. He could keep Little Bear in his pocket all day. No need to take any chances. If he were tempted to show the other children, well, he must resist temptation. That was all. And after school, he could take him to Yap's. The boxes with the plastic figures in them were in a corner behind a high stand. Provided there weren't too many other kids in the shop, he might be able to give Little Bear a quick look at the lady Indians before he bought one, which would be a very good thing. Otherwise, he might pick an old or ugly one without realizing it. It was so hard to see from their tiny plastic faces what they would look like when they came to life. Okay, then, I'll take you, but you must do as I tell you and not make any noise. He put him down on the seed tray and gently shooed the horse up the ramp. Little Bear tied it to its post, and Omri gave it some more rat food. Then he crawled on hands and knees over to where the cowboy was now sitting dolefully on the carpet. His horse's rein looped around his arm, looking too miserable to move. What's the matter? Omri asked him. The little man didn't look up. Lost my hat, he mumbled. Oh, is that all? Omri reached over to the baseboard and pulled the pin-like arrow out of the wide brim of the hat. Here it is, he said kindly, laying it in the cowboy's lap. The cowboy looked at it, looked at Omri, then stood up and put the hat on. You sure ain't no regular hallucination, he said. I'm obliged to you. Suddenly he laughed. Just imagine thanking a piece of your delirium tremens for giving you your hat back. Just can't figure out what's going on around here. Say, are you real? Or was that Injun real? 'Cause in case you ain't noticed, you're a dang sight bigger than he is, and you can't both be real. I don't think you ought to worry about it. What's your name? The cowboy seemed embarrassed and hung his head. My name's Boone, but the fellows'll call me Boo-hoo. That's account of I cry so easy. It's my soft heart. Show me something sad or scare me just a little, and the tears just come to my eyes. I can't help it. Omri, who had been somewhat of a crybaby himself until very recently, was not inclined to be scornful about this and said, That's okay, only you needn't be scared of me, and as for the Indian, he's my friend and he won't hurt you. He's promised. Now I'd like you and your horse to go back into that big crate. I'll stick the knot back in the wood. You'll feel safer. Then I'll get you some breakfast. Boone brightened visibly at this. What would you like? Aw, shucks, I ain't that hungry. Couple of bits of steak and 3 or 4 eggs sitting on a small heap of beans and washed down with a jug of coffee'll suit me just dandy. You'll be lucky, thought Omri. And that is the end of chapter 9. The next chapter, chapter 10, is called Breakfast Truce. So we'll probably find out what's going to happen between the Indian named Boone and Little Bear. See you tomorrow.